can only speak from experiences on how I had to pay for my blessings. Money came by the things I've learned from life lessons. Like a book is more powerful than a bullet, no question. Or how about a book can also limit you from guessing? Being on my deathbed, listening to my mother's cry, had me pay for my life, with my life, no lie. Instead of giving it to the devil, I gave it to the Almighty High. The price I had to pay to see paradise in the sky. Now, I used to play the streets like 24/7. Now I pray for others with a beautiful learned lesson. Not to mention my moms can also sleep without stressing. Blessing on top of more blessings. I done fought the police toe to toe, bare arms. They could have easily taken me out. Rest in peace to Trayvon. I've been blessed to go to jail behind bars. You might not see it that way, but I done made it this far. Blessings aren't free. You might want to thank God.
Peace and blessings, dear sister. How are you?
I'm well, thank you.
Well, sister, as always, we want to talk about the beautiful part of your beloved son, Brother Kyrie. I know that nobody can tell a story about their child no better than their mother. So let's start from birth. What was it like for Brother Kyrie growing up?
Kyrie was a rambunctious child, actually. He came early. He came early. I was just shy of 7 months pregnant when I had him. He was a premature baby, and he had to stay in a hospital for a few months. And so that was the beginning. and from there, he was, like any other normal, typical child, very playful, um, fun loving, mischievous at times, but a heart of gold, a heart of pure gold. He he was the child that aimed to please. So he did all he could to uh, to please. So he was a very good child.
Assalamu alaikum, dear sister. How you doing?
Walaikum assalam. I'm doing great. Thank you.
Oh, it's definitely a pleasure to meet you, sister. And just from talking to your sister today, you know, as I mentioned as we talked earlier, you definitely deserve a cape for all the beautiful things that you've done. And this is where sisterhood, definitely displayed in these circumstances during her earlier stages of, you know, um, her having a child at 16. So, what are your fondest memories at that time when you found out that your sister was pregnant at 16?
Wow. Well, when she was 16, I was 15. And I was also pregnant
Right.
when she was pregnant. So we were basically pregnant at the same time, but I didn't know that she was far gone as she was in her pregnancy. So it was like a surprise to us all.
Okay. So, what was the reaction of your parents to find out they had two daughters pregnant in the same household, close in age? What was that conversation like?
That was scary. It was tough to deal with. You know, it was embarrassing. You know, you as a teenager, you know, back in them days, you know, you feel a little ashamed, you know, because you know you don't want to bring any shame upon your family, you know. So you know, it was difficult. It was
Okay.
definitely difficult.
Well, you mentioned your mother and father. What kind of support did you have? And know what? Sometimes we got to think about that initial conversation to tell mom and dad that you were pregnant at 16. What was that like?
Oh wow. Well, like I said, I was in a state of denial, and then I hid. I hid the pregnancy from my mother for as long as I could, and I didn't tell her. I think my sister or somebody else told her. And so when she came to me about it, it was not so much a conversation than it was in frustration, you know, and chastisement. Not that I blame my mother, you know, because she, you know, she did the best she could with us. Um, so yeah, so that it wasn't a sit down conversation. It was more of a cornered in the bathroom. I heard that you were pregnant, and how that all unfolded. So
How about your father's response?
my dad at that time, my mom and dad had been separated probably about 2 years or so at that time. I was about 14, 15 when they separated. And so that was a little different. I actually can't even remember the conversation with my father. Really, it was probably um, with a little more compassion knowing him, but I can't even recollect how that went, to be honest.
Right. So let's fast forward because it's always that conversation in the beginning, but it's always different when the baby is born. So
Hmm.
you're in the delivery room. Mom and dad, what were their spirit then?
Well, the situation was a little different because I was having complications during my pregnancy. And so my mom took me to the hospital because the sac, the birth sac was breached and was leaking. And she took me to the hospital, and they saw it as a serious concern and kept me. And so they kept me. I probably was in the hospital about a week before he was actually born. So he was born in the middle of the night. I think it was like 4 a.m., something along those lines. So I was with myself at that time. Nobody else was around.
Okay, so your beautiful son is born.
Hmm.
And that's the happiest day. One it has to be one of the happiest days of your lives. What was the environment and the mindset then, being that you had the beautiful black man in your arm, little beautiful black baby in your arm?
Again, my situation is different, and just being honest about the whole thing. Um, there was a lot of trauma involved for me. Um, and he was a preemie. He was 3 pounds when he was born. And so I didn't have the luxury of cradling him and feeling all the, you know, the emotions that most mothers feel when their baby is first born. Because he was whisked away. He was whisked away in the arms of the nurses to be um, um, to keep his heart strong enough to be here.
So you mentioned the complications. So when did things start to get better where you can take the baby home?
Okay. He stayed in the hospital about 2 months until he was healthy enough to come home. And I brought him home to my mom's home. And my sister, who was a year younger than me, um, had a child of her own as well. And so we have two babies in the house. And so, you know, the beginning phases would would be as you would imagine when any newborn baby in the house. He's catered to, he's doted to, especially in his condition and predicament. He received extra care and comfort. Um, yeah, but I was again. I was 16, 17. In his earlier age, and so I still had a lot of youthfulness in me. And so my sister took on a lot of the um, the doting and the nurturing in the earlier phases. She had her child. She was a lot more of a home body than I was, and so while I was ripping and running the streets, she stepped in and actually did a lot of the nurturing on my behalf.
You pretty much help hold it down, saying during those challenging times, where you stepped up because I take it that you had the experience, 6 months of experience, where she did have it. That's where your experience came in and you held it down for the most part until she was able to settle into her new role as a mother.
That's correct. That's correct. Yes, it was definitely me taking on a responsibility of him because, um, you know, I don't know if um, I'm sorry, I'm trying to find the words. um, it was I don't know what her state of mind was, during that time, but it was difficult, not only for her, but just growing up in Southeast DC and the projects, and just dealing with the day to day of just survival. So I was a more of a homebody. So I was used to being at home and caring for my younger brothers and sisters, my younger siblings. So Kyrie was basically just came along and I had to fill another role, which was helping take care of him for her. So yeah, I think uh, a lot of things that we dealt with at that time, we were just experiencing and didn't have no idea of how to deal with things. So we were just learning as we go, and I was just more so a homebody, and took that responsibility, basically in a sense from her,
Yes.
because I basically took on that role. I think long before Kyrie was born, of being that nurturer for the
Your
family.
son's father. Now, I know he was happy and I know he had to change your heart, but let's talk about what kind of a great father you said he was. You want to elaborate on that?
Yes, yes. Norman was a good father. He stepped right into the role. After upon that first visit, I guess he had to see for himself because again, we didn't have a prior relationship, um, and so uh, you know, he he uh, he jumped in with 2 feet. He was there all the time. I didn't need for anything. He took Kyrie and introduced him to his side of the family and things of that nature. So he was a very intricate part of his life. The short time that he was in his life, because Norman was killed when Kyrie was 6 months old.
Wow. Well, how was he killed, if you don't mind me asking?
He was shot. He was gunshot. Violence. Yeah. So it was short lived. Um, but he stayed in touch. His family stayed in touch, and we built a bond around Kyrie. So he was able to, get certain aspects of his side of the family. But yeah, his father was shot and killed.
Well, how old was your son then?
6 months.
6 months.
Yep.
Okay. So he didn't get a chance to have that full father son bond
Right.
to learn the ins and outs that a father and son would normally have.
Correct.
So, okay, just fast forwarding, what kind of child was Kyrie in the household as he first began to walk? Once they found a way to walk, that's when he started feeling himself. So, what kind of child was he when he was at that stage?
Um, I can recall Kyrie being scared to walk. I think it took a while for us to get him enough courage to actually walk on his own. Um, he also had, his cousins right there pulling him along. So it was almost like whatever they were doing or whatever his older cousin, which was my son, whatever he was doing, Kyrie was trying to keep up. So he did a lot of keeping up with his older cousins at that time. So he grew up in an environment where he had to keep up
Peace,
with the
Mulad,
rest of
Rahman
the kids.
Rahim. In the name of Allah, the beneficent and merciful, all praise due to Allah, the Lord of the worlds. Without Allah, there's nothing that comes to existence. If we want to ask Allah that He give us the spirit and the guidance to do His will, and that His will comes first before all else. I'd like to definitely greet my brother Kayel, with the greeting words of peace of Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum. Walaikum assalam.
Good to see you, good my brother.
Good to see you too. Likewise. Thanks for doing this. Thanks for having me.
Yes, sir. So we definitely want to talk about our good brother Kyrie, and I know that you had a special relationship with him. You was not just cousins; you were more like brothers. And we want to get a side of brother Kyrie that perhaps many don't know. And of course, we know that our brother had his struggles, like all of us do. And this is not coming from a place of judgment, but more of an educational aspect on many of the demons that many of our families do face, that we can help and hopefully inspire others to go another direction with the story. So without that being said, brother, tell us a little bit about yourself, and then also a little bit about brother Kyrie.
Okay. All right. So my name is Kayel. I'm Kyrie's cousin. We grew up together. Kyrie was born on March 26, 1990. I was born October 12th, 1990, a few months apart. He was slightly older than me. But we grew up at the hip. We were together from day one, all the time. Um, when I was 17, no, when I was 18, I went off to college, and that's around when we stopped seeing each other, but we always stayed in touch as cousins. But then after graduating college, I moved, out of the country. We still stayed in touch on social media and whatnot. But I've been in Mexico for the past 8 years now, living and working down here in education, and Kyrie and I, always maintain contact via social media, WhatsApp, TikTok, whatever the mode of communication was at that moment.
Yes,
Uh,
sir.
all right.
So what was it like? Let's go back to growing up in a household. What was it like growing up? Because you were so close together. What was it like growing up in your household? What was that environment like?
Okay, so Kyrie was probably either over our house or we was over at his house every weekend, almost every weekend. Our moms were sisters, and they were close in age. They were really young moms too. My mom had me at 16, and I believe Kyrie's mom had him at 16 as well. So they were pretty young, and they leaned on each other a lot to take care of us. So either we were at Kyrie's house, he was at our house, but we were always together. We kind of grew up in a brother type situation. He lived with us for a year at one point. We always did everything together. So we grew up in a very close knit, household. And what can I say? Let me see. Starting from my earliest memories have been with Kyrie. I can't tell you when first time I remember my cousin, the first time I remember seeing him. It's just, I've always remembered him being there.
So you mentioned earlier about how your sister, auntie, took on a lot of the nurturing role. What made you decide, or have you decided at that time, that you have a bigger responsibility than being out in the streets?
That's an excellent question. I think with me, age came maturity. And so, after a while, of hanging out in the streets, and that gets old. That gets old. The older you get, you start thinking more long term about responsibilities in life in general. Your prefrontal cortex grows stronger, and you start to realize that you're no longer a young teenager anymore. And what are you gonna do? And so when I was 21, I had my daughter. So now I have two children, and I was a lot more stable mentally when she came along. And so I promised myself that when she was old enough to start school herself, that I would in turn start school as well, go back to school. I didn't finish grade school. And so the day she was admitted into pre-kindergarten, I dropped her off, her and my son, to school, and I drove from there to the community college and enrolled myself. And so I would like to say that was probably one of the earliest defining moments in my life when I decided to shift.
Assalamu alaikum, dear sister. It's definitely a pleasure and an honor to actually meet you and talk about the beautiful thing about your big brother, Brother Curry. Good brother, but we want to learn the beautiful side of your brother, and we want to get your testimony as well. So let's get started. What is your fondest childhood memories of your brother?
I remember his goofy side. He was playful, sometimes too playful. Brother and sister, he got on my nerves. But that's mainly what I remember growing up as a child. Just him. It was just me and him for the most part. But him just being so goofy. He wanted to be a comedian when he was a little younger, so he definitely played that part growing up. He always made me laugh. He made everybody laugh. Everybody in the room, he gonna grab your attention. He gonna make you laugh. So, growing up, that's what I remember most. His laugh was so loud and bold. He could tell a joke, and then even if the joke wasn't that funny, the fact that he's laughing so extra, it made you laugh too. So his energy was definitely contagious when it come to him being funny.
Right. So the entertainment was more for him than anybody else first.
Exactly.
Okay, got you. Yes. Yes. So what type of big brother was he?
He was very protective. We could definitely come to each other and talk about whatever. I would confide in him a lot. I was going through some of our older messages, and a lot of it was just me going through normal teenage stuff, and the fact that I was able to come to him like wholeheartedly and break it down to him, and he was just give me some influence or advice as a big brother, but I appreciated the fact that I was able to talk to him in that way, that we were so close like that, that I could talk to him, me being his little sister and a female, that I could still come to him and talk to him about whatever.
Okay, so what type of advice would you normally ask him for in reference to, big brother? Because that's a good thing to have as a young sister, to have a big brother to understand men, life, or get a different perspective. What was um one of his advice that was stuck out to you the most?
He would normally, in different ways, he would tell me to relax in uh, a smaller word. He would basically tell me, if you good, he would reassure me that no, you're not overthinking anything, you're not tripping, but at the same time, relax. It's gonna work out. So he got me to calm down a lot of the time. So
Okay, he's your comforter.
right, exactly. Yeah,
Got you.
that's a
That's
better
good.
word.
It's
Definitely.
good. It's good to have those things. So, what was the like a lot of the things that he did teach you coming up? Let's start from pre-teenage until current time. What were the things that he would teach you?
That's the pre-teenage. He Hmm. Pre-teenage years, he was more so the one that was outside. So I think he wanted me to be the opposite. So like I said, he was really protective. So in a way, he taught me to be careful when it came to being outside or in the streets, as you can say. So that's definitely one thing he taught me growing up. He kept me more home based than he was, and I think he did that because he knew what was out there. You know what I'm saying? So that's one thing he taught me growing up. In our older years is when I went through a lot more stuff mentally or spiritually, you could say. And that's when it comes to advice, he definitely taught me how to be more level headed and to not take everything so seriously. And I appreciate that till this day. I could go through something and go crazy in my mind. And when I talked to him, he had a totally different perspective on it. He agreed with me, but he also showed me or taught me how to calm down, calm my thoughts, calm my mind, and that helped me a lot. So that's one major thing he taught me in our older years as I got
Okay, well, let
older.
me ask you this, and this to go into a little bit more depth. Now, you're already a single mother with a child, and you mentioned that you had your beautiful daughter later on. Has that changed your mindset on what type of men that you would get involved with prior to you getting involved with your daughter's father?
Not really. Not at that day. I didn't start coming into a better understanding of the importance of the science of mating until um, a little later than that. So yeah.
Okay, so you are in a relationship to some degree with your daughter's father,
Mhm.
and I'm sure you shared with him that you already had a son.
Mhm.
Knowing that, was he involved with your son's life at any aspect of your dating?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. He helped rear. Kyrie had a lot of people in his life that assisted me in rearing him, and Dwayne was one. My daughter's father. We were together for 5 years, um, and he up until the day he transitioned, he was dad. You know, he was dad. So yeah, he took on the role of father. He helped support and nurture him as well.
Well, what type of man was he? To go in depth with that, because sometimes it's good to know the men who do step up and take on responsibilities outside of their own bloodline. So, can you go in more in depth what type of man your daughter's father was?
He loved his daughter and he loved me, and I think I think it was a natural transition to come into my son's life at the time as well and love him just as much. He didn't have a father of his own, and he knew that. And we were a family, we were a family. So he took on the roles and responsibilities of being a father. Um, yeah, because at that time, that was the most likely thing to do.
How does someone that knows everything don't know himself? I know I live to die and get cremated on one shelf. I'm supposed to show kids good deeds and to gain wealth. Them lies are forbidden and the truth is good health. But I don't know myself. I'm lost within reality. I know I can't be you and you can't be me. I was taught in the presence of a fool you must flee. And a fool is something that I refuse to be. The only thing I'm confident of is my skin complexion. I'm also aware that I'm going the wrong direction. I was told that I'm supposed to learn from that lesson. But truth be told, every breath in my body is a blessing. I dare you to look within yourself and ask that one simple question. Who am I?
I think Kyrie was in school. Kyrie was more of a curious student. He asked a lot of questions. He made fun out of everything, even going to school. Um, yeah, I would consider him the class clown.
Okay, so was it like that in class and at home? So I guess the dinner table was all about Kyrie.
The dinner table, the lunch table at school. Yes, Kyrie was always interested in making people laugh and getting a smile and being impactful in some way. So yes, he was a joy to be around.
Okay, so that sounds like a typical young child at that age. To just have a good time, be full of laughter and humor. When did you notice the change in your nephew when he went from this bubbly jokester into a place where most of us in the inner city often fear for us, particularly our young men,
Mhm.
to start going astray? When did you start noticing the difference?
Well, I moved from the DMV area back in 2000, and I believe it's in 2007. And at that time, I'm not sure how old Kyrie was. He had to be at least 16, 15 or 16 years old when I moved from the DMV. So before that time, I mean, I would have Kyrie at my house just about every weekend because I had my oldest son Raheem and his cousin Kyle. They were 3 years apart, Raheem and then Kyrie and Kyle. So they were all very close. So every other weekend or so, Kyrie would stay with me, or I would drop the kids, my boys, off with Alkamar at their house. So I never saw a transformation out of Kyrie. I didn't get this, I didn't see that. So my memories of him has always been the fun-loving, adventurous, wanted to recite poems and concentrate on writing and that was the Kyrie I saw. And when I did go home periodically throughout the years, within those 15 years that I had left DC, um, I always saw him in good spirits. I've always saw him in his best. So I didn't recognize or experience that part of his
And if
life.
you run, I'm just gonna chase you anyways. I'm not a stalker, I just don't wanna lose my baby. I'm not a stalker, just don't wanna lose the love of my life. You know what they say, easy to do bad and hard to do right. So I'm sitting here by myself, there's no one in sight to help me out. So I guess I'm forced to use all my might to do good. So they won't look at me in despite like I'm a bad person and I hate to prove it right. So I'm just turn around and keep the Lord in my sight. And if I have to, I will be the first one on that flight. Cause I don't want to be the next one. Put my lips back on that pipe. I done made a promise to myself. Yes, I promise not to go down that lonely road or back on the top shit. That mean I was once dead, but now I got good health. I know back in the past, I done made mistakes. Please, you know it's over now. Promise me to stay. And if you run, I'm just gonna chase you anyways. I'm not a stalker. I just don't want to lose my babies.
What did that make you feel like when when he's speaking this and he's giving you his escape? Cause that's
Mm-mm.
art form. When people find their talent through art, whether it be drawing, singing, poetry, whatever the talent is, that's what God gives us to be successful, or the coping mechanism. But he uses poetry. What did that make you? How it make you feel when you heard those words?
I was ecstatic. There were some times when we would discuss his poetry, because Kyrie can get deep, and meaning deep in his Islam, deep in his level of understanding about society and man, and we would have hours of conversation, just getting in his head, just getting an understanding as to why he think the way he thought and why he wrote what he wrote. And so I was truly blessed. We will always have conversations about what he wrote and why he wrote what he wrote and what he was thinking.
You realize that he has a certain gift and talent to be outgoing and outspoken.
Man, Kyrie was always about speaking his mind and always about being, saying what he felt. I feel like he always felt that, speaking your mind and saying what you feel is something that is just authentic. And he was always about being authentic as most as he could. Kyrie didn't, Kyrie's father died before he was even born, I think. So Kyrie never really met his father. And that was something that was a big part of him growing up. He always talked about his dad, and he would get emotional a lot of the times too, and just talking about how he wished he knew his dad and how he wished he had met his dad. So I think he never took it for granted, not having a father and not being able to have a dad in his life. So I guess he wanted everyone around him as well to kind of appreciate more what they had. So yeah, he was always the life of the party. He was always the funny one. He always cracked jokes. He was dancing. But for me, I always looked at that as being his way of looking for that attention that he never had from his father. He was always trying to get attention from everyone around him, and he was ready to make you laugh in the process. So when I think about Kyrie growing up and about why he was always so extroverted, why he was always so such the life of the party, I think that part of that was deep down him, looking for validation, looking for acceptance, and and I think that he did that by making people laugh and making people smile. He was a dancer, he was a comedian, he was a singer, he was everything but an athlete because he tried to dabble in sports a few times, and that definitely wasn't.
Let's talk about his art. I know that you mentioned that he was a comedian and was pretty much for his entertainment first. But what was his art, his poetry? Can you expound on his poetry? I'm pretty sure he shared that with you as well.
Yeah, he did. It's funny because he started out. He wanted to be a rapper when he was a teenager, and so he dibbled and dabbled in that. And I think it just matured as he got older into poetry. And he could write poetry about anything. Honestly, he could even see something that I was going through and write a poem about my situation. So I think that he was perfecting his craft. I think that he definitely had a talent.
Okay, so do you remember a particular poem that he might have shared with you that stuck out?
I remember a particular poem, but I couldn't recite it offhand, but I do, and it's actually the one that we put in his obituary. That is my favorite poem that he wrote. I don't remember it offhand. I couldn't recite it word for word, but that's definitely one of my favorites. And he spoke on God. Honestly, he spoke on his troubles and overcoming his troubles, and basically how he was coming back in reach of God. So it stood out to me, and it was honest. So I love that poem.
Right. It's amazing how sometimes when we're in our darkest places that we find God or try to find that light to get out of our circumstances.
Mm-hmm.
And timing is everything,
Yeah.
and I'm pretty sure he shared that with you. It's like when you try to find God, make sure you stay on a path. This way God can assist you on your journey that you're on. So I can understand where he's coming from with that.
Yeah.
So, with his art, have you learned from people, his friends, his influence, that how his poetry affected them?
Yeah, he is. As going through some of the messages that we had, he spoke a lot about how his friends would come to them and they would basically watch him go through some stuff and get through it, and then they would see him post his poetry and stuff, and that was kind of like motivation to him, and he was proud of that, and I was proud of him for even being able to motivate his friends in that way. And they noticed his poetry, they took heed to it, they appreciated it the same way we did as his family. So I think he helped a lot of his friends that were in the same situation that he was.
There's nothing to do but to do exactly what I need to. I must confess, being bored is a test, but a pleasant pest if I only knew best. Surrounded with nothing, content with being lonely, using my pair of eyes to see simply why the earth rotates slowly. Pleasantries from the side, I listen out hear hints, guiding me to the world's beautiful presence. They say nothing plus nothing equals nothing. So how does something come from still.
So let's talk about his poetry. I know that's one of the things that you were so proud of him about. What about his words and his poetry that touched your heart?
He had a gift for the written word, which runs in my family. Actually, you know, my father was a good orator, and yeah, so he had the knack to use a very limited amount of words to make a huge impact, you know. So he was gifted in that way, and yeah, I was proud of my son for his ability to articulate himself in a written form, and he used his platform to help other people. He was brutally honest about himself and his predicament, and towards the end of his life, I recognized that his goal with his poetry was to share his experience with other people so they won't fall the same, you know, to the same victimization that he did. And he did that well. He did that brilliantly. He loved God. You know, he put, you know, the Creator was a very, very intricate part of a lot of his work. You know, he had a higher spiritual awareness. Yeah, so he was just very gifted in that way.
Who am I? I'm a poet. Three RB is an organization standing for Three Real Brothers. What inspired me for the poems, I used to write raps, but I was in the healing stage. I wanted to heal not only myself, but my community. So I transformed from rap to poetry. It's not as big as an impact as rap will be. It's a beautiful world, you know what I'm saying? It's different. I stole this from my grandfather. He said you have to get under to stand to understand. And that's why I do poetry. Higher power, please grant me the wisdom, knowledge, and respect. The wisdom to know that life moves forward and you can't get a second back. The knowledge to know that you can forgive, but you better not forget. And as we all know, you have to give it to get it. Damn right respect. These three characteristics a man should not lack. I live for my seed, and my seed I protect. The same way you do me when I get caught up in some shit. Excuse my French, but I'm just keeping it real. Plus you're the only one that can judge the way I feel. Do I live for the moment, memories, or thrills? Sad to say, but I just learned to just love to live. Do I live for the moment, memories, or thrills? Like I say, I just learned to just love to live. The same routine, for instance, maybe you go to work, come home, go to work, come home, go to work, come home. When are you living? When are you gonna really live the way you want to live? I can't thank you enough for never once leaving my side. Even when I was praising the devil with a blind eye. But now I fight to become your right-hand guy. And the only thing I hate, besides the devil, is to hear my mom's cry. But majority of my life, I had put her through too much. And it used to kill me. I never knew how to get out. But God gave me another chance. To me, you're the best thing ever known to man. I was taught you have to get under, to stand, to understand that prayer is the best and always in the helping hand. You have to get under. Let's say you're swimming, for instance. You're under the water. You're losing breath. Now you're up. Now you're standing. Now you understand that too much time in that water will kill you. For without unity, a community will never stand. Am I my brother's keeper? Damn right I am. My letter to God.
I didn't know this until a couple of years ago, actually. Very recent information. One of Kyrie's girlfriends shared with me that he confided in her that he was sexually abused when he was a child. And I don't know all the details, because when I went to him to question this information, he didn't deny it. He was in jail at the time, and I went to visit him, and I was looking eye to eye, and I asked him to tell me about that. And I watched his eyes glaze over, and he shut down completely, and he said, I don't want to talk about it. And I begged and pleaded, and I tried every avenue I could to get him to share his thoughts with me, but he was adamant that he was not going to speak about it. He just said, Mom, all you should know is that it was nobody from our side of the family. That was all the information that he would give me to go on. I don't know when. I know he was a child, but for me, in knowing this, it allowed me to put some things in perspective as to a lot of the trouble that he dealt with when he was younger. I tried as a parent to put all the patterns in my mind and try to figure it out, but I don't know why we have this thing of protecting the villains. I don't know why we do that. But that part of Kyrie's existence for me gave me some understanding as to why he took made some of the decisions he did and took the turns that he did in his life. I'm not saying all children who are abused sexually make the same choices in life, but for me, that kind of put some pieces of the puzzle together, unfortunately, for me to understand that that played a very pivotal part of the man he became, in his life, and how he used drugs to cover and to mask a lot of the pains that he was dealing with in life, unbeknownst to me. But I would say that every person who suffers through substance abuse has a story. They have a backstory. We don't just wake up one day and decide to abuse ourselves. There's always a reason behind that decision. So for me, I don't think we understand deep enough how severe this sexual abuse epidemic towards our children have on their lives in general. I think if we knew the ramifications, if we had a better understanding of the ramifications, we would be doing everything in our power to put an end to it, and not cover up and sweep under the rug and deny and pretend that everything is all right, when in fact it's one of the worst emotional situations that any person can go through in their life. So it's an issue. It's a severe issue. And I'm hoping that Kyrie's story and my story will shed some light on the seriousness of the situation.
Well, if you wanted to share with the world about your brother that they didn't know, what would you share?
I would definitely let his friends know that he wasn't so different from them. He just he overcame it in a different way, and I think that his poetry helped with that a lot. I think that he went through some things in his life, and life was kind of hard for him. But he always stayed positive, and he always kept trying. And he had even going through the things that he went through, he had strength. So if any of his friends are still currently in certain situations, or they're going through something themselves, I would keep that in mind. Stay positive and keep trying and keep strength. Remember that you are still strong, even though you are in a difficult spot in life. You still have strength, so push through and stay positive. Focus on the positive aspect of it, because that's what he always did, and that's what he reminded me to do too. So
Beautiful. If there was something that you could say to him today, if you could, what would you say to him?
to my brother, I would definitely let him know that I'm proud of him. Regardless of anything, I'm wholeheartedly proud of his accomplishments. And I was just saying recently, I know he had a lot of things that he wanted to do that he didn't get the chance to complete, unfortunately. But I'm just proud that he was focused on his goals, and he was slowly accomplishing them. When it comes to his book, he wanted to do a poetry book, and he worked on that all the time. He would call me all the time, reciting new poems, and he was focused on that goal. So that's just one thing that I would really want him to know, that I'm so, so, so proud of him.
Oh,
Yeah.
praise be to Allah. Any closing remarks, beloved?
You said closing remarks?
Yes,
I
that's
just,
on your mind and your heart.
yeah, definitely. I just want to put a message out there to anybody who is struggling, and I'm just keep it all the way 100. Anybody who, if you know Kyrie, you knew some of his struggles. Anybody who may be struggling with addiction or any type of struggle in life, I just pray that you think about yourself and the people around you who loved you, and just keep trying. I know when it comes to addiction in particular, it can get hard, and there's a lot of different reasons why people fall on certain types of addiction, but there's always a better route, and you can always come out of it, basically. I just pray that you think about yourself and you keep your friends and family in mind, because you never want it to get to this point, because it hurts, Situations like this really hurt, and I just pray that people find a way out of what they're going through mentally. There's always a way out.
One thing that I think that I learned from Kyrie through all of this, and this was something that was so characteristic of him, is that you never stop trying or stop letting someone know that you love them or that you care for them. I think that that's something that we can always do. You can never, you can't make someone do anything or not do anything, but you can make them know that you love them. You know what I mean? Or you can let them know like that you're there, that you're present, or that they, if they need you, they can reach out to you. And I had to learn this a difficult way, because I want to tell you kind of how my last conversation with Kyrie would have gone if he wasn't just such the amazing spirit that he was. So Kyrie and my sister about 2 years ago had gotten into a big issue, a big drama, a big fight or whatnot. And I got upset with Kyrie because I just told him before, and I kind of referenced this earlier. I was like, Kyrie, when you go down there, you go live with my mom, and you know, because I was talking to him when he was still up in Maryland before even moving down to Georgia. I was like, please don't get involved in what's going on with my mom, my sister, and them. They got some little issues going on. Just stay out of it, Kyrie. You're going down there to get yourself, together. You're not going down there to fix the issues or the drama that's going on down there. All right. So I was like, Reed, just, stick to yourself, do your thing. And of course, Kyrie got involved. He wanted to try to, make things better. And that ended up causing a fight between my sister and him. That's my brother, that's my sister. But at the end of the day, I've always got, I had my sister in mind. So I kind of got upset with Kyrie and I blocked him. I said, Kyrie, God damn it, I told you, man. So I blocked him. He tried to explain his rationale and I was like, all right, Kyrie, I'm done, and I blocked him. That lasted probably like 2 weeks, the block, because I started feeling guilty. I was like, damn, it's my brother. If he needs to reach out to me, I don't want to have him blocked. You know what I mean? Like, I want him to be able to reach out to me if needed. I'm still upset. I'm not going to talk to him, but I'm going to unblock him. So I unblocked him. And then literally like a day or 2 days later, a message comes through from him. And it says, hey, Cuzzo, no matter what, at the end of the day, we family. And I love you. And I responded to that. It's all love, Cuzzo. And then, he's responded back with his little smiley faces and stuff like that. And we were good. But that type of forgiving, it's all love, it's family. At the end of the day, this is what we're about. That's something that I will take from Kyrie, that I've always gotten a bit upset, hot-headed. I've blocked people. I've cut them off. I've decided, I'm just done with it. But I think that the worst thing you can do is cut yourself off to someone who may need you at that moment, or just to cut yourself off from someone that you may need as well. So I think that being open and honest and mature and having a conversation with people is the best way to deal with it. And I think that that's something that Kyrie always tried to do, maybe a bit too much. Maybe people kind of get tired of wanting to solve problems and get to the bottom of it, in one sitting. But that's something I can say that Kyrie was 100% about. He was 100% about family, about love, about being around people, and about putting our differences aside. And that's something that I will take, to my grave. And that's something that has profoundly changed in me since Kyrie passed.
Praise be to Allah, brother. That was profound, brother, and I definitely appreciate what you shared, brother. The floor is yours, brother. Is there anything in mind in your heart that you want to share, that if Kyrie was sitting in front of you right now, what would you share with him?
I think that, man, and so I'm not, because I would get emotional and stuff. I had my closure with Kyrie when I felt like, I was in Mexico, I was at work, I just dropped everything one day and just decided to come and fly out to be with him. It was the first time I had seen him in years. Unfortunately, it was in the hospital bed, but I had my conversation with him. I've made my peace, and I'm gonna get super emotional if I try to do it again. But what I will say is, for others, and speaking kind of for Kyrie, what I feel is that when Kyrie passed, I feel that his energy, in science, they say that energy it's not, destroyed or formed, it's not created or destroyed, it's merely transferred from a different state to a different state. And that's exactly what happened with Kyrie. I mean, there's no doubt in my mind that Kyrie has transformed into his higher state, and he's kind of spread a bit of his energy amongst everybody who's ever met him. Okay, so everybody has taken something from him that if you really think about it, and if you really, reflect on it, that is meant to make your life more meaningful. And what I've taken, from Kyrie is, be the reason you want someone to smile. Just be the reason you want someone to smile. That was something Kyrie always did. He wanted everybody around him to be smiling, to laugh, and that sometimes that was at his own expense. He was the comedian, of course, But it wasn't a comedian because he wanted to be funny or because he wanted, all the attention. He wanted to be a comedian because he liked to see people laugh. He wanted to see people feel good. He wanted to see people smile. And that's something that I want to take, with me and, have with me for the rest of my life. If I can be an influence, a positive influence on someone's life, if I can make someone smile, then man, that's everything. And I think that, it took Kyrie passing for me to realize that, and I think that that's the unfortunate thing is that we always have to wait for something tragic to happen to realize the simplicities of life. We all have a ticket out of here. And it could be at, 32 years old, could be at 92 years old, it could be at 16 years old. Your ticket to leave is it's a ticket with an open, open date. You don't know. But while you're living, you have all of these opportunities to make someone smile, to make other people happy. And I think at the end of the day, that's what life's about. It's not about making yourself happy, how many computers you can buy and how much money you can make. So at the end of the day, when you're gone, you're not taking any of that with you. So if you really want to live a purposeful life right now, make people happy, make someone else's day. And then watch how your day is made. And that's something that I've taken from Kyrie that I think that anybody who knew him, anybody who has interacted with him will say that was his mission. He wanted to make everyone around him smile.
What advice did you give him about staying on a particular path of righteousness? Because that other path is a dark side to it.
Yeah, my advice was to him every day is to pray and ask Allah to forgive you for your past transgressions and to seek knowledge and to, my advice was for him was always to associate himself with like-minded people who also wanted, for him to see him succeed, also who wanted to succeed. So I've always encouraged him to surround himself with people who can keep him on the right path, because I know I used to tell him all the time, we can't live this life alone. We all need each other. We all need one another in order to survive. We can't do it alone. So in this survival and in this life that we live in, we have to reach out to one another and ask for help and ask for guidance. And when you find yourself surrounded by individuals who's not on your same mind frame, to get away from them, even if it's family. I used to tell them that all the time. It can be, your closest kin, but if they're not on the same path or the righteous path or trying to put you in the right direction, then my advice was to stay away from them until you're stronger, until you know that you can handle whatever comes your way. So we had a lot of those sort of conversations on a day-to-day basis sometimes, and I miss it. I really do. I miss talking to him and having those deep conversations and getting to each other's head. And yeah,
That's a beautiful thing, and it's a blessing because a good auntie is like a second mom. Just like a good grandmother's another mother. And it's beautiful that you and your sister were able to support one another, being that you both were pregnant at a young age together, and be able to lean on each other for support when it was needed. And him growing up knowing that, okay, if mom's not here, auntie's here, but that's like second mom. And this is why I think that the beauty of it all, that he had the strength of Black women. The strength of Black women is unmatched, untouched. And just by me hearing what you have done for your nephew, and I'm pretty sure your sister appreciates you so much. And this is why I made that comment earlier that you deserve a cape or you need a cape. It's amazing. I'm saying, because not all sisters get along and not all brothers get along, but love was very important. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I couldn't agree with you more. It was instilled in us how important family is growing up. Like I was mentioning earlier, it was eight of us in one home. So it was 4 boys and 4 girls. So we had to learn how to get along.
Right.
We had to learn how to, to look out for one another and to be there for each other. And that's one thing that I instilled in my kids and Kyrie as well, is to take care of each other and be there as a support for one another, because you can't live on this planet alone. It's impossible. So you have to learn how to get along and learn how to survive with those around you. And so, yes.
Praise be to Allah. In closing, beloved, for those watching this, what would you want the world to know about Brother Kyrie? And if you had a chance to say something to him for the final time, what would you say?
Mm. Well, I want everyone to know that my nephew Kyrie was an angel. He was, to me, he was an angel. He always was uplifting. He was always searching for his spiritual side. He was loving. He was a family man. And if I can speak to him, I will let him know that I loved him dearly. And I know he knows that I loved him dearly, and that he will truly be missed, and that there will be no one ever, there will never be anyone to replace him in my heart. He will definitely be missed.
Okay. So if you had to share with those listening overall about your son and your story alone, what would you share to the people listening to this on your path, your journey, that they can learn from?
What I would say is try not to blame yourself for the things that you didn't have understanding of when they were transpiring. I look back, I spent a lot of years in regret, and I don't recommend it because it doesn't feel good. I blame myself for a lot. Sometimes I still do. I've gotten better, but as moms of children who struggle with substance abuse, it's easy to look back and question where did you go wrong as a parent. And my son will always assure me that it was nothing I did. He would always assure me of that. Mom, stop blaming yourself. It's not your fault. I chose this. But, as a parent who is supposed to protect their children, it just becomes difficult to accept. So that would be one of the things that I would say. Attempt to not blame yourself for the things that you didn't know. There was a lot of things I would do differently today had I known, then. But I didn't know. I did the best I could, despite the circumstances. So I would just encourage people to love despite the circumstances. It's easy to when you hate the situation, but you still have to love them despite what they're what they're doing to themselves. because and then there's always hope. There's always hope, and the situation doesn't always end, bad. There's a lot of situations and circumstances where people have gotten themselves together and went on to live a happy and productive life. So don't ever give up. Don't ever give up, on your loved ones. Yeah.
Beloved, your story and your testimony was strong. We definitely appreciate you willing to share with the masses, because we can learn from a lot of these things. Not all tragedies are bad, but it just shows that we need our village to continue to be tight, and everything happens for a divine reason. And we're sure that your beloved son has impacted people positively more than negatively. It's just he was just a victim of the demon within. So we want to thank you for all that you have contributed to our community. And your son was right. You did all you could. It was the choices he made, unfortunately. But his memory in your heart will live on forever. So thank you for your time, beloved.
Thank you.
Peace and blessings, peace and blessings. This is the first poem I ever written, called Past Mistakes. True story. I know back in the past, I done made mistakes. But please don't go, it's over now, promise me you'll stay. And if you run, I'm just gonna chase you anyways. I'm not a stalker, I just don't wanna lose my baby. I know in the beginning, it was hard for me to understand. But you did, now I do, that transformed me to a man. I'm not gonna fall, cause I done finally learned how to stand for everything. And if I lose, I'm just gonna fall again. Right back in his hands, watching the devil smile. And I ain't trying to be his right-hand guy. Nor do I wanna make the mighty Lord cry. I just wanna live, peacefully in the sky. Watching over my family, better yet over everybody. But until that day, I gotta live right and not sloppy. Hell is next if I commit suicide with the shotty. So I put it down and just walk around like I'm happy. I know back in the past, I done made mistakes. But please don't go, it's over now, promise me you'll stay. And if you run, I'm just gonna chase you anyways. I'm not a stalker, I just don't wanna lose my baby. I'm not a stalker, just don't wanna lose the love of my life. You know what they say, easy to do bad and hard to do right. So I'm sitting here by myself, there's no one in sight to help me out. So I guess I'm forced to use all my might to do good. So they won't look at me in despite like I'm a bad person and I hate to prove them right. So I just turn around and keep the Lord in my sight. And if I have to, I will be the first one on that flight. Cause I don't want to be the next one putting my lips back on that pipe. I done made a promise to myself. That's a promise not to go down that lonely road or back on the top shelf. I mean, I was once dead, but now I got good health.
Kyrie Malik, also known as Reed the Poet, left his mark and made an impact on thousands of people throughout his life. When you take the time to listen to what he was saying, it's clear to see this was a beautiful soul. The people who knew him best say he made everyone feel like family. And from close relations to the homeless guy on the street, that's the honest truth. You can tell that he had a gift to touch people with his words and bring laughter to the situation when it was needed most. His poetry was filled with lessons learned from experience, and he was definitely on the way to producing more greatness with a book of poetry in the works. The social media archive that he left on YouTube and TikTok will certainly bring smiles and inspiration to people for a long time to come. His legacy is determination, motivation, and inspiration for all those he left behind. Kyrie Malik, you will definitely be remembered.
Happy morning, early morning. Is it morning? You're still snoring? Don't tell me it's that boring. Early night for a morning flight, for the earliest worm with the tastiest bite. Don't let the morning slip away as the bed turns gray. What a most glorious day for the ones that pray. Becoming very acquainted with rising with the sun, cause if I get caught sleeping, the nightmare's just begun. Sun produces light for the living with an outcome. Gotta be wise enough to get up early enough to catch that one. pondering the importance of a brand new day. It's like a reset button. You get a brand new slate. But use it wisely because it's not every day that you get to sit back and watch the sun drift away.